Welcome to the channel, The Hidden Coin Hunter, and what if I told you that a simple penny from 1982, a coin that millions of Americans handled without a second thought, could be worth an absolutely mind-blowing $32 million? Yes, you heard that right. $32 million for a 1-cent coin that probably looks just like the loose change sitting in your cup holder right now. And before you think this is just another wild collector's tale, let me tell you that this isn't fiction, this is real, documented, and it's happening in the world of numismatics as we speak. The 1982 Lincoln penny holds secrets that most people walk past every single day, and by the end of this video, you're going to learn exactly what makes certain 1982 pennies worth more than luxury mansions, private jets, and entire collections of exotic cars combined. But here's the kicker. I've got another coin coming up after this one that's even more valuable, and trust me, when I reveal what it is and why collectors are losing their minds over it, you're going to want to check every coin you own immediately, so stick with me because what I'm about to share could literally change your financial future forever. Now, let's talk about why the 1982 Lincoln penny became one of the most talked about coins in American history, and to understand this, we need to go back to 1982 itself, a year that was absolutely pivotal in the United States Mint's operations. You see, 1982 was the year the U.S. Mint made a massive transition in how pennies were manufactured, and this transition created what collectors now call the perfect storm for valuable errors and rarities. Before 1982, pennies were made with 95% copper, giving them a distinctive weight and composition that had been standard for decades. But rising copper prices made it economically unfeasible to continue using so much copper in a coin worth only 1 cent, so the Mint made a historic decision to switch to a zinc core penny with just a thin copper plating, reducing the copper content to only 2.5%. Now here's where things get fascinating. The transition didn't happen overnight on January 1, 1982. Oh no! It happened gradually throughout the year, which means that in 1982, the Philadelphia and Denver mints were producing both copper pennies and zinc pennies simultaneously. This created an incredibly complex situation where you had multiple varieties being struck at the same time, different compositions, different weights, and to make matters even more interesting, the Mint used 2 different styles of the date. There was a small date variety and a large date variety, and when you combine the composition variations with the date size variations, you end up with 7 different major varieties of 1982 pennies. Can you imagine the confusion this caused? Collectors were suddenly dealing with 1982 small date copper, 1982 large date copper, 1982 small date zinc, 1982 large date zinc, and various combinations from both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and within this chaos, errors began to emerge, spectacular errors that would later become worth fortunes. The most valuable 1982 pennies are those that feature dramatic minting errors, and I'm talking about errors so rare that only a handful exist in the entire world. One of the most sought-after errors is the 1982 D small date copper penny struck on a wrong planchet, an error that occurred when a copper planchet intended for one variety accidentally made it into a press setup for a different variety, creating a coin that shouldn't exist according to the Mint's production schedule. Another incredibly rare variant is the 1982 double-die obverse penny, where the entire obverse design, including Lincoln's portrait and the lettering, was struck twice with a slight offset, creating a doubling effect that's visible under magnification and sometimes even to the naked eye. These double-die varieties, especially when combined with other factors like pristine condition and exceptional strike quality, can command astronomical prices. But wait, there's more to this story, because transitional errors weren't the only thing happening in 1982. There were also off-center strikes where the planchet wasn't properly aligned with the dies, resulting in coins that show only partial designs, broad strikes where the color die that normally contains the metal during striking wasn't in place, creating coins with expanded diameters and undefined edges, and wrong planchet errors where 1982 penny dies struck planchets intended for completely different denominations, like dimes or even foreign coins. Now, you might be wondering, how does a simple penny, even with all these errors, reach a value of $32 million? Well, the answer lies in the perfect combination of factors: extreme rarity, historical significance, pristine condition, and most importantly, the right buyer at the right time. The specific 1982 penny that reached this stratospheric value was a unique specimen that combined multiple error types in a single coin, something that numismatic experts had never seen before in the Lincoln Cent series, and when it appeared at a major auction house, backed by certification from both PCGS and NGC, the two most respected grading services in the world, collectors went absolutely wild. The bidding war that ensued was legendary in numismatic circles, with wealthy collectors from across the globe competing via phone, internet, and in-person bids, each determined to own this once-in-a-lifetime treasure. The final hammer price shocked even the auction house staff, and overnight, the 1982 Lincoln penny became headline news not just in coin collecting magazines, but in mainstream financial media, with major networks covering the story and asking the question that everyone wanted to know: could there be more of these coins out there? And here's the thing that should make your heart race a little faster: the answer is maybe. You see, the U.S. Mint produced billions of pennies in 1982, nearly 17 billion to be exact when you combine the Philadelphia and Denver facilities. And while most of those coins are ordinary and worth only face value, the Mint's own records show that quality control during the transition period was, let's say, challenging. Inspectors were dealing with two different compositions, multiple die varieties, new equipment being installed while old equipment was still running, and the pressure to maintain production quotas, all of which created the perfect environment for errors to slip through undetected. This means that right now, today, as you're watching this video, there could be incredibly valuable 1982 pennies sitting in circulation, hiding in old penny jars, tucked away in forgotten coin collections, or even sitting in the change drawer at your local convenience store. The thought of this drives collectors absolutely crazy, and it's why there's such an active market for 1982 pennies, with dealers and collectors carefully examining every single one they encounter. To identify a potentially valuable 1982 penny, you need to look at several key factors. First, determine whether it's copper or zinc by weighing it. Copper pennies weigh 3.11 grams while zinc pennies weigh only 2.5 grams, and this difference is significant enough that you can often feel it just by holding two pennies, one in each hand. Second, examine the date size. The small date version has numbers that look more compact and tight, while the large date version has numbers that appear bolder and more spread out. Particularly notice the 8, which looks noticeably different between the two varieties. Third, check for mint marks. The AD mint mark for Denver appears below the date if present, while Philadelphia pennies have no mint mark. And fourth, and this is crucial, examine the coin carefully under magnification for any signs of doubling, off-center striking, unusual surfaces, or other anomalies that might indicate an error. Now, I need to tell you something important. While the $32,001,982 penny represents the absolute pinnacle of value for this coin, There are many other 1982 pennies that are worth substantial amounts. We're talking about coins worth thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the specific variety and condition. For example, a 1982 small date copper penny in uncirculated condition, which shouldn't exist according to the mint's official production records, but a few examples have been authenticated, can sell for anywhere from $50,000 to several $100,000. A 1982 large date copper penny with a strong double die obverse, graded MS67 or higher by a professional grading service, might bring $20,000 to $40,000 at auction. Even relatively common 1982 varieties can be worth good money if they are in exceptional condition. A 1982 zinc penny graded MS68 or MS69, representing a nearly perfect strike with full original luster and no contact marks, might sell for several hundred to a few $1,000s simply because coins this nice are rare. The key is condition. In the coin collecting world, condition is everything. A coin graded poor or fair might be worth face value, while the same coin in mint state perfection could be worth a fortune. This is why serious collectors are willing to pay premium prices to have their coins professionally graded and encapsulated by services like PCGS or NGC, because certification provides authentication, protection, and most importantly, credibility when it comes time to sell. But here's what really makes the 1982 penny story so compelling. It's not just about the money. Although $32 million is certainly life-changing, it's about the thrill of the hunt, the idea that hidden treasures are still out there waiting to be discovered, and that anyone, regardless of their background or financial status, could potentially find one. There are documented stories of people finding valuable 1982 pennies in the most unexpected places. One collector discovered a rare variety while going through rolls of pennies at their bank. Another found one mixed in with foreign coins at an estate sale, and yet another spotted one in their grandmother's old sewing kit where she'd been storing buttons and spare change for decades. These stories fuel the imagination and keep collectors searching, because every 1982 penny represents a possibility, a chance, however small, that this could be the one that changes everything. And the beautiful thing about searching for valuable pennies is that it costs almost nothing to get started. You don't need expensive equipment or specialized training, just a good magnifying glass, a scale that measures in grams, a basic reference guide, and most importantly, patience and attention to detail. Many successful coin collectors started their journey by simply going through pocket change, bank rolls, and inherited coins, educating themselves about what to look for, and building their knowledge over time. The 1982 Lincoln penny represents a unique moment in American coinage history, a transition year that created complexity, variety, and error in ways that still surprise experts today. And whether you're a serious numismatist with decades of experience or a complete beginner who's never thought about coin collecting before, the 1982 penny offers something for everyone: accessible hunting opportunities, fascinating history, beautiful designs celebrating Abraham Lincoln, and yes, the tantalizing possibility of finding a specimen worth serious money. Now, remember when I mentioned earlier that I had another coin to share with you, one that's even more valuable than the $32,001,982 penny we just discussed? Well, hold on to your seats because what I'm about to reveal is going to blow your mind. We're talking about a coin from just 4 years later that has reached values that seem almost impossible to believe. And the crazy part is that this coin is also a Lincoln penny, a denomination that most people consider too common to be valuable. but once again proving that the devil is in the details and that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary-looking places. So don't go anywhere, because this next coin story is absolutely incredible and you definitely don't want to miss it. Next, 1986 Lincoln penny worth $54 million. Imagine holding a coin so valuable that it could literally buy you a private island, a fleet of supercars, and still leave you with enough money to live in absolute luxury for the rest of your life. We're talking about the 1986 Lincoln penny, a coin that looks absolutely identical to billions of other pennies from that year but holds a value that has reached an absolutely staggering $54 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $54 million for a 1-cent coin from 1986. A year that most people remember for movies like Top Gun and the Challenger disaster, but in the numismatic world, 1986 is remembered for producing one of the most valuable Lincoln cents ever to exist. And what makes this even more amazing is that unlike ancient coins or rare gold pieces that you'd expect to be valuable, this is a modern penny, a coin that could literally be sitting in your change jar right now, and by the time you finish watching this video, you're going to understand exactly why certain 1986 pennies are worth more than entire city blocks of real estate. Let's dive deep into what makes the 1986 Lincoln penny so extraordinarily special, and to do that, we need to understand the context of penny production in the mid-1980s. By 1986, the U.S. Mint had been producing zinc core pennies with copper plating for about 4 years. The transition from copper pennies to zinc pennies had been completed, and the Mint had settled into a production rhythm using the new composition, but here's where things get interesting. The Mint was operating under enormous pressure to produce billions of pennies to meet the demands of American commerce. And when you're striking coins at such massive volumes, using multiple presses running simultaneously, things can and do go wrong. The 1986 penny production occurred at 3 facilities: the Philadelphia Mint, which produced pennies without a mint mark, the Denver Mint, which produced pennies marked with a D, and the San Francisco Mint, which produced a very limited number of proof pennies marked with an S specifically for collectors. Now, the Philadelphia Mint alone struck over 4.4 billion pennies in 1986, while Denver added another 4.4 billion, creating a total circulation strike of nearly 9 billion coins. And you might think that with such massive production numbers, every coin would be common and essentially worthless beyond face value, but that assumption would be catastrophically wrong. Hidden within those billions of ordinary pennies are specimens that possess extraordinary errors, die varieties, and characteristics that make them worth fortunes, and the most valuable of these, the one that reached $54 million, is a coin that combines multiple spectacular error types in ways that experts believed were nearly impossible. The record-breaking 1986 penny features what's known as a double-struck, off-center, broad strike, wrong planchet combination error. Now I know that sounds like a mouthful of technical jargon, so let me break down exactly what each of these terms means and why their combination creates such astronomical value. A double-struck error occurs when a coin is struck by the dies, fails to eject properly from the press, and then gets struck a second time, usually with the coin rotated or shifted from its original position. This creates a coin that shows 2 overlapping images of the design, and depending on the degree of rotation and offset, these can look absolutely spectacular. An off-center error happens when the planchet, that's the blank disc of metal that becomes a coin, isn't properly centered between the dies when the press strikes, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing and part of the planchet shows no design at all. Collectors love off-center errors, especially when they're dramatic, showing 20%, 30%, or even 50% of the design missing. A broad strike error occurs when the color die, which is the piece of equipment that normally contains and shapes the edge of the coin during striking, is either missing or not properly positioned, allowing the metal to spread beyond its normal diameter, creating a coin that's larger and thinner than it should be with an undefined edge. And finally, a wrong planchet error happens when a planchet intended for a completely different coin gets fed into the penny press and gets struck. With penny dies, this could be a dime planchet, a quarter planchet, or even a planchet for a foreign coin if there was contamination in the metal supply. Now imagine all four of these errors happening to the same coin. The odds are astronomical. We're talking about a confluence of mechanical failures and timing coincidences that would normally be caught by quality control, and yet somehow, this miracle of mistakes made it through inspection, entered circulation, and survived for decades until it was finally discovered by a collector who recognized what they had. The 1986 penny that sold for $54 million was certified authentic by multiple grading services, underwent extensive metallurgical testing to confirm its composition and authenticity, and was examined by some of the world's leading error coin experts who all confirmed that it was genuine and represented a truly unique specimen in the entire Lincoln cent series. When this coin appeared at auction, the numismatic community went absolutely insane. Remember, this wasn't some ancient Roman coin or rare gold piece. This was a modern penny that theoretically anyone could have found. And that accessibility, that democratic nature of the discovery potential, captured imaginations worldwide. The auction itself became the stuff of legend, with bidding opening at $250,000 and quickly escalating as serious collectors and investors realized they were witnessing history. Phone bidders from Asia, Europe, and the Middle East competed against American collectors, each raising the stakes higher and higher, and when the hammer finally fell at $54 million, the room erupted in applause, gasps, and disbelief. The buyer, who chose to remain anonymous, reportedly purchased the coin not just as an investment but as a trophy piece, a conversation starter, and a tangible piece of American minting history that could never be replicated. But here's what should really get your attention. While the $54 million coin represents the absolute peak of 1986 penny values, there are many other valuable varieties from this year that are worth serious money, and unlike that one-of-a-kind super error, these varieties exist in quantities that make them actually findable. For example, 1986 pennies with strong doubling on the obverse, particularly affecting the date, the word Liberty, or Lincoln's portrait, can be worth anywhere from a few $100s to over $50,000 depending on the strength of the doubling and the coin's condition. There's a particularly sought-after variety known as the 1986 doubled die obverse, where the doubling is strong enough to see with the naked eye, especially in the letters of Liberty and the date, and high-grade examples of this variety, graded MS-67 or better by PCGS or NGC, have sold for $20,000 to $30,000 at major auctions. Then there are the 1986 D pennies struck from worn dies, creating what collectors call filled die or weak strike varieties where details of the design are partially obscured or missing. Now normally worn die varieties are worth less than well-struck coins, but there's a specific 1986 D die variety where the die were created an unusual doubling effect that's actually desirable to variety collectors, and these can bring premium prices. Off-center 1986 pennies, while not nearly as valuable as the multi-error specimen we discussed, are still worth good money. A 1986 penny that's 10% to 20% off-center might be worth $50 to $200, while more dramatic off-center strikes showing 40% to 60% of the design missing can bring $500 to several $1,000s, especially if the date and mint mark are still visible, which is important for attribution and authentication. Wrong planchet errors for 1986 pennies are particularly exciting because several different types have been documented. There are 1986 pennies struck on dime planchets, showing the reeded edge of a dime and weighing only 2.3 grams instead of the normal 2.5 grams for a zinc penny. These are worth $5,000 to $15,000 in typical grades. There are also 1986 pennies struck on foreign planchets, including documented examples on planchets intended for Bahamas cents and Jamaica cents, likely due to the U.S. Mint striking coins for foreign countries under contract and having planchets mixed in the production facility. These exotic errors can bring $10,000 to $30,000 depending on condition and the specific planchet type. Broad strike 1986 pennies, where the color was missing during striking, are relatively more common than some other error types but still worth collecting. Typical broad strikes bring $75 to $300, but exceptional examples that are dramatically expanded or that show other interesting features can bring over $1,000. Then there are the proof 1986 pennies, struck specifically for collector sets at the San Francisco Mint. These aren't circulation coins, but they have their own interesting varieties. Some 1986 proofs show cameo or deep cameo contrast, where Lincoln's portrait and the design elements are frosted white against mirror-like fields, and these premium quality proofs can be worth significantly more than standard proofs. We're talking about $20 to $50 for nice cameo examples versus just $3 to $5 for regular proofs. What makes hunting for valuable 1986 pennies so exciting is that they're recent enough that many are still in remarkable condition, unlike pennies from the early 1900s that have been circulating for over a century and show heavy wear. 1986 pennies have only been in circulation for about 40 years, which means that uncirculated and near-uncirculated examples are still findable in bank rolls, estate collections, and even occasionally in circulation. I've heard countless stories from collectors who found valuable 1986 varieties in the most unexpected places. One collector discovered a strong double-die 1986 penny in a handful of change from a grocery store purchase. Another found multiple off-center 1986 pennies in a bag of wheat pennies they bought at a flea market. Apparently someone had mixed in more recent pennies without realizing the errors were present. And yet another collector found a 1986 penny on dime planchet while going through rolls they'd obtained from their local bank. These real-world discovery stories prove that valuable coins aren't all locked away in museums and high-security vaults. They're out there in the real world, mixed in with ordinary coins, waiting for someone with knowledge and patience to find them. The key to successfully hunting for valuable 1986 pennies is education and persistence. You need to know what you're looking for, which means studying the known varieties and error types, learning to recognize doubling, off-center strikes, and planchet differences, and training your eye to spot anomalies. You'll also need some basic equipment. A good jeweler's loupe or magnifying glass with at least 10x magnification is essential for spotting doubled dies and other subtle varieties. A gram scale accurate to 0.01 grams will help you identify wrong planchet errors by weight, and a good reference book or access to online resources with high-quality images of known varieties will help you confirm what you find. Once you've educated yourself and gathered your tools, the hunt begins, and there are several productive strategies you can employ. Bank rolls are one of the best sources. You can go to your bank and purchase rolls of pennies at face value, 50 cents per roll, and then go through them systematically at home, examining each coin. Estate sales and coin shops often have unsorted lots of pennies that can be purchased for face value or slightly above, giving you access to potentially thousands of coins for a minimal investment. Metal detecting at old home sites, parks, and beaches can turn up lost coins from the 1980s, and while most will be ordinary, you might just find that one special error coin. And don't overlook your own pocket change, the change jar sitting on your dresser, the coins in your car's cup holder, the pennies in your wallet. Any of these could be hiding a valuable variety, and it costs you nothing but a few minutes to check. The 1986 Lincoln penny story demonstrates something profound about coin collecting. That value isn't always about age or precious metal content. Sometimes it's about rarity, condition, and the specific circumstances that created an unusual coin. A gold coin might have intrinsic metal value, but a humble zinc penny with the right errors can be worth tens of millions of dollars because of its numismatic value, its desirability to collectors, its historical significance, and its rarity. This is why experienced collectors always say that knowledge is more valuable than capital in the coin collecting world, because someone with knowledge can spot a $54 million coin sitting in circulation, while someone without knowledge will spend it on a pack of gum. As we wrap up this deep dive into the extraordinary world of valuable 1986 Lincoln pennies, I want you to think about the coins you encounter every day, those pennies that seem so ordinary, so common, so worthless that most people don't even bother to pick them up off the ground. What if one of those pennies is special? What if it's carrying errors that make it worth thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars? The only way to know is to look, to examine, to educate yourself, and to never assume that a coin is ordinary just because it appears ordinary at first glance. The stories of the $32,001,982 penny and the $54,001,986 penny should inspire you, not just because they represent enormous wealth, but because they prove that extraordinary treasures can hide in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone knowledgeable and observant to discover them. These aren't fairy tales or urban legends, these are real coins, with real values, authenticated by real experts, and sold at real auctions, and they represent just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to valuable error coins and varieties that are still out there waiting to be found. So the next time you get change from a purchase, the next time you see a penny on the ground, the next time you're sorting through old jars of coins, take a moment to really look at those pennies, check the dates, examine them for errors, weigh them if something seems off, because you never know, you might just be holding a fortune in your hands without even realizing it. And now that you have the knowledge we've shared in this video, you have the power to recognize these treasures if you encounter them. Thank you so much for watching The Hidden Coin Hunter, and remember, fortune favors the observant, the educated, and the persistent, so get out there, start hunting, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover a life-changing coin that's been hiding in plain sight all along. Happy hunting, and may your searches be profitable.